If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. Okay?
That was Cenk's nephew on his Twitch channel trying to gas up members of his audience to target a sitting senator. A sitting senator, by the way, that Cenk's nephew, the largest political streamer on Twitch.com, doesn't even know is a sitting senator at the time that he's throwing all of these aspersions. And again, trying to gin up hysteria and get members of his audience to go after him in the real world.
You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him the current, what is his current office? What is he? He's the Richard Lynn Scott, is an American attorney, businessman, politician, Navy veteran, serving as the senior United States Senator from Florida, a seat he has held since 2019. And also, I believe this past election cycle, he was literally the f***ing head of the, what was it, like the Senate committee or something? Like the Republican fundraising initiatives. The reason why I'm saying if you cared about Medicare or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about how Twitch decided that they were going to suspend Cenk's nephew, allegedly, over this particular moment in his live stream, although I don't think they've confirmed this, and already, within 24 hours, they have restored his Twitch account because gassing up members of your audience to go act out violence in the real world is no big deal if you're a left-wing guy, if you're Cenk's nephew, and it's absolutely ridiculous and absurd in every possible way. We're also going to talk about how he, of course, is playing the victim. He's crying about this because he got to taste for once in his entire life a tiny bit of consequences for the actions that he participates in. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. Okay?
So I want to make 2 points clear for everybody out there in the audience, and those 2 points are as follows. This is actually technically not a threat, and technically it is not a call to violence, and it's important for you to understand that because Cenk's nephew is being incredibly weaselly, incredibly cowardly, because obviously he does endorse political violence. He has made direct threats of violence to people. He has called on his audience to kill landlords in this famous clip right here.
Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers in a video game. Sorry. Holy shit. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist bloods, dude. Oh my god, in a video.
However, technically, what he said in relation to Rick Scott does not meet that particular threshold. And to be clear, Cenk's nephew is no stranger to threatening violence or having a call to action against a sitting United States senator. He very infamously actually tweeted out a way to make the same firearm that was used to kill the former Japanese prime minister against Senator Tom Cotton. So again, it's not like he hasn't done this before. It's just that technically this does not meet the threshold, and this is what Cenk's nephew is going to hide behind. In fact, he actually put out a video talking about how he got canceled. Of course, for some reason, all of the letters in the title are lowercase. I guess this is a thing that the left-wingers like to do for whatever reason, and in that particular video, he talked about how he's the victim, his life is so sad, and this is also stuff that he ended up putting forward on Twitter.com, or X, formerly known as Twitter, when he talked about how, oh my god, all the people who defend free speech are not on his side. I'm sorry, I'll choose my words carefully next time and say, quote, if Mike Johnson cares about Medicare fraud, since he wants to cut $800 million from Medicare and Medicaid, he'd call for max punishment, all caps, for current Florida GOP Senator / former Governor Rick Scott, who has done the most Medicare fraud in U.S. history. Now, he also adds, big shout out to the right-wing free speech lovers who took time out of their day screaming about DEI and immigrants to cry about this. So yeah, right here you have the downplaying from Cenk's nephew where he's saying, oh, I should have just called for maximum punishment in all caps for what Rick Scott did back in the day when the company that he founded merged into another larger company, and that company was fined $1.7 billion by the federal government for overcharging providers including Medicare, Medicaid, and of course insurance companies. Now, of course, Cenk's nephew wants to make this all about that, but to be clear, he does not want the Republicans to do anything that would actually restrict the practices of these companies. But more importantly, that is just a distraction from the mainline issue, which of course is him trying to encourage members of his audience to act out violence in the real world, while at the same time being too cowardly himself to call for it. And the idea that maximum punishment is the equivalent of killing somebody, killing a sitting senator, which is what Cenk's nephew was trying to get members in his audience to actually do, is ridiculous and absurd. The maximum punishment for what the company that, again, Rick Scott founded a company, it merged with a larger company, ended up doing back in the late 2000s was for him to, pay the fine that he paid. He paid the maximum fine, or the company paid the maximum fine, and those were the consequences for that. So yeah, Cenk's nephew obviously knows what he's doing. He's obviously trying to weasel around this, and considering he has a long history of supporting terrorist organizations, interviewing and propping up terrorists like the Houthi pirates, and of course supporting violence and including murders, like the fact that he supports Luigi Mangione, we know exactly what he's trying to do. So this is absolutely pathetic. And again, the whining, the crying about the fact that he was suspended for 1 day on Twitch.
A couple days ago, I had a conversation where I was responding to the Republican House of Representatives Speaker, and I said some things. Let's take a look at what I said. Libs of TikTok, of course, posted about it. Here is what Libs of TikTok claimed I was saying. Hassan Parker just called for violence against a sitting U.S. senator. If you cared about Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott at FBI. This got 17,000 likes. It was on February 28th. Let's take a look at this clip really quickly.
There's about $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone. No.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him a prominent part of the Republican Party. Now, that seems like a wild thing to say. Oh my God. Is this person calling for the death of a U.S. senator? Of course not. I was not calling for the assassination of a U.S. senator. So
again, a slap on the wrist from that company that immediately was undone the very next day is ridiculous and absurd from top to bottom. And considering the standard from the left is stochastic terrorism, something that they bring up time and time again, which basically is their way of trying to censor you for speaking out on specific issues like immigration or criminality, because somebody out there in the world might take action based on the periphery of them hearing about these issues in the public. The idea that this person is saying you should, advocate for the killing of a U.S. senator is absurd and ridiculous in every possible way. Again, the guy is an absolute coward from top to bottom. We all understand what he was doing, and considering the context of the fact that he supports Luigi Mangione for killing a CEO of United Healthcare, which, by the way, is alleged at this time. He is not convicted despite the fact that it's on video. Everybody gets where he's coming from, considering he directly called for the murder of Tom Cotton, a senator in the United States, when he decided that he was mad at him on Twitter.com and faced no consequences for that. We all get where he's coming from. It's not a game. It's not a joke. But to him, he gets to get away with this because he is privileged and protected by the mainstream media running defense from him constantly.
Okay, so obviously, I shouldn't have used hyperbolic language, and there's definitely some ownership that I must take. Some apologies there. I should not have said Mike Johnson should kill Rick Scott. I should have simply said Mike Johnson should punish Rick Scott, perhaps with the, maximum punishment, whatever that would be.
And by the way, if somebody did take action, some fringe member of Cenk's nephew's audience did target Scott, make no mistake about it, two things would be 100% true. One, Cenk's nephew would support that. He would bring up constantly, oh, the Medicare fraud, oh, the Medicaid fraud, oh, the insurance fraud that you don't talk about because you don't like private insurers, but whatever. That was also included in what this company was doing, and he would not at all say, oh, I'm sorry that I put that out there into the world. And in addition to that, this would not be the first time that a left-wing Bernie Sanders Cenk's nephew type decided that he was going to take action against sitting members of Congress. Remember, Steve Scalise was shot while practicing for the congressional baseball game with a bunch of other senators and congressmen by a Bernie Sanders supporter who was convinced by the Russia hysteria that the Republican Party was selling them out to Russia, that they weren't doing enough for healthcare and all of that. that. And Cenk's nephew, of course, had no condemnation for that individual right there, because this is the kind of violence that he advocates for consistently. He supports it. Again, he has made that clear throughout his entire time on Twitch.com. And if, by the way, somebody made similar comments in the other direction, if they targeted a sitting Democratic senator or a sitting Democratic congressman, and they implied it in this not technical threat, not technically a call for action kind of way, make no mistake about it, Twitch would suspend that person permanently, not just for 24 hours. So the fact that this guy is throwing a little bitch fit over the fact that he faced some consequences, the fact that he's backing down in the most weaselly and cowardly way, is just a show of not only his character, but of course the fact that he's never really experienced any consequences for his actions, that he's never really faced any kind of accountability, and that's absolutely shameful in every possible way. Again, left-wing progressives are attacking Tesla places. Left-wing progressives try to kill Brett Kavanaugh. They have threatened violence or engaged in violence or taken steps to enact violence against the right or perceived institutions of the right time and time again, over and over again, and a large portion of that is because people like Cenk's nephew are essentially pushing for this, even if they're too cowardly to directly call for it. By contrast, the way we conduct ourselves on this channel is we don't do that. We don't play those games. I make it clear to everybody out there in the audience that enacting violence in the real world is not okay. It's not acceptable. It is piss poor behavior, and I completely denounce it. And the reason why I do this, the reason why I try to make this clear, is because I know when I do a call to action, when I ask you guys to donate to a GoFundMe or call a certain representative about a malicious prosecution or some kind of law, some percentage of you do that. Now, when you guys step up in order to help the victim of a crime, or when you guys step up in order to call a state legislature or a congressman or whatever, that's a good thing. That is participation in the system that I can get behind. But it only takes one. It only takes one person out there in the audience to misunderstand, to misconstrue, to interpret something that you're saying or you're implying in the way that is intended from Cenk's nephew, but for me it would be unintended, in order to act out some horrors in the real world. And that's something that I am not okay with. That's something that I try to address time and time again, but it just goes to show you that there's no actual benefit from me doing so, other than the fact that it is clearly immoral to not do so, because Cenk's nephew gets rewarded time and time again. He keeps churning up the temperature. He keeps trying to radicalize members of his audience. He keeps trying to push them further and further, and when they do enact violence in the real world, when they do commit the crime, or when somebody who's not even in his audience commits a crime against somebody or an institution that he doesn't like, the man gets fully behind it because he's disgusting. So yeah, Cenk's nephew is absolutely the worst, and make no mistake about it, if you're out there in his audience and you think that you're going to enact on behalf of him, he doesn't give a damn about you. You're an absolute idiot and a fool to him. You're a sucker. He doesn't care about his life. That's why he's encouraging you to throw away your life while he is living it up in the life of luxury, while he's in a multi-million-dollar home, while he drives a car that's more valuable than many people out there in the audience's homes, because he doesn't give a damn about you. All he cares about is promoting himself. And if a couple of you end up ruining or throwing away your lives in the process of his radicalization effort, that's no big deal to him. If you get killed trying to enact violence against somebody, because make no mistake about it, the chances of you surviving something like that are extraordinarily low, doesn't matter to him. If you end up in federal prison, doesn't matter to him. That's who he is fundamentally, somebody who doesn't give a damn about his audience, and it's absolutely disgraceful the fact that this guy is promoted by a major corporation like Twitch. But you know what? That's where we are. Leftists are often backed by these major corporations, because the fact of the matter is, when you advocate for more government control over society, that benefits already entrenched interests. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Cenk's nephew, basically trying to tease his audience into committing violence. Till next time.